who really killed Michael Jackson? I know, I believe I know, I have my opinion at least. And if you haven't watched that documentary on TMZ, Who Really Killed Michael Jackson, check it out because it's interesting. And it provides us with new facts that we've never heard of that I think tend to show who really is at fault for Michael Jackson passing away. At the time of his death, it was noted he had 300 milligrams of propofol in his system, enough to put down a rhinoceros. So that opioid addiction, it started from a Pepsi commercial. And as you can see, there's an issue with the pyrotechnics that actually catch his hair on fire. But it's hard not to look at that guy and think smarmy, snake, not reliable. And if you listen to any one of his interviews, you listen and you tell me that you'd let that guy babysit your dogs. There's no way. Hey, I'm Brian Brown, the anti-lawyer. I know I don't look like a lawyer. I may not sound like a lawyer at times, but I am a lawyer. I've collected over hundreds of millions of dollars for my client and tried over 30 jury trials. And right here, we're gonna hit anything that hits the airways and we're gonna talk about it from a legal perspective. And I'm gonna give you my 2 cents. So Michael Jackson, as everybody knows, passed away June 2009, mostly related to an opioid addiction that he had. So that opioid addiction, it started from a Pepsi commercial. This, according to the documentary, in 1984, Michael Jackson is shooting this Pepsi commercial. And as you can see, there's an issue with the pyrotechnics that actually catch his hair on fire. Well, as a result of that, he was taken to the hospital. He had to go through a bunch of different procedures. He was obviously in pain and discomfort. So they did what they normally do, right? They prescribed him pain medication, opioids, to help manage his pain. The problem is he stayed on those opioids for way too long and it turned into an addiction. So that addiction was fueled by Michael touring upon touring upon touring. He kept taking these opioids like many people do to get through life, to keep him awake and allow him to work these prolonged hours. The issue with that was, though, is he used so many of them that he was unable to fall asleep. Again, this is all related to the TMZ documentary. So what he had to do is he turned, interestingly enough, to different anesthetics. An anesthetic is something that doctors use to put people to sleep, to operate them on. And you're gonna listen to Dr. Drew Pinsky in the documentary say, listen, when you're in you're under the influence of an anesthetic, you're really not asleep, you're not getting rest. And Michael's choices were Demerol and Propofol. Propofol, you've probably heard about it because of Michael Jackson. And Michael Jackson would affectionately call Propofol milk. And according to the documentary, doctors in that documentary indicate that Michael was administering this himself. At the time of his death, it was noted he had 300 milligrams of propofol in his system, enough to put down a rhinoceros. So, as we indicated, Michael ultimately ended up passing in June of 2009, right before the This Is It tour was supposed to start in July of 2009. Dr. Murray was convicted of involuntary manslaughter for Michael's death. He was sentenced to 4 years. He served 23 months and before he was released on good behavior. So, who killed Michael Jackson? We have some suspects, okay? Dr. Arnie Klein, Dr. Feelgood, the dermatologist to the stars. Dr. Arnie Klein is a weird dude. Here, take a picture right here. Look at him. I know it's not great to judge a book by a cover. People do it to me all the time, but it's hard not to look at that guy and think smarmy, snake, not reliable, not someone I would let supervise or babysit my dogs, let alone my children, let alone inject me with anesthetic. And this is the thing. According to that documentary, Michael would frequent Dr. Klein's office not once, twice, 3, 4 times a week, sometimes every day of the week, according to Michael Jackson's bodyguard. And he would leave those clinics in a very seemingly drugged up state.
No, I've never seen anything like this.
And he'd be in there for what? Acne procedures, Botox, according to the documentary, for 4 to 5 hours, leaving in such a state and coming in that frequently. That doctor knew what was up. And he knew what was up is he kept 2 sets of books, just like criminals. He had a clean set of books and a dirty set. The clean set showed Michael getting prescriptions under his own name, just normal, everyday, kind of mundane shit. However, the second set of books, up to 19 different aliases Michael used at different points of time, and that second set of books had the real drugs that Michael was getting prescribed. Demerol, Propofol. I mean, this is some serious anesthetics that Dr. Klein was administering. But hey, Dr. Klein got invited to all the parties. Michael flew him around. Michael paid his bill to fly around, which was obviously enormously high. We got Dr. Conrad Murray. He was the one who indicated he got found guilty of involuntary manslaughter. It's funny enough, when the FBI and DEA raided his house, I lived in Vegas and he lived a couple streets over from me. My wife calls me, she's like, hey, all these helicopters, I drive home, I see it. It ends up being Dr. Conrad Murray. He served 23 months in jail. Now listen, this is the thing about him. In the documentary, they document in a 3-month period, he had gallons of propofol delivered to his girlfriend's house. Suspect? Yes. Why do you need that much propofol? Who knows? But Michael clearly knew what Michael was doing. He was fueled by his own addiction. So did Michael kill Michael? Well, he was obviously getting prescriptions from many different doctors. At one point, he was getting prescribed 22 different medications by 4 doctors. He was using 19 different names to get these prescriptions. As you might know, the DEA has a database, and all the doctors that prescribe medicines are supposed to document it within that database. However, if you're using different names, one doctor doesn't know that the other doctor is prescribing the same sort of medication, and Michael was using that to his benefit. However, he was clouded by his addiction. However, you're still responsible for your own actions. So, in my opinion, Michael could have killed Michael. He definitely knew what he was doing. He was fueled by an addiction, and he ended up passing away from that addiction. The medical community, you could argue, let down Michael. They obviously didn't live up to their Hippocratic oath. Dr. Drew Pinsky and other doctors within that documentary say that. They say, listen, we believe the medical community, sadly enough, let Michael down. They were blinded by Michael's fame. They were blinded by their own egos. But there's one doctor that I think more than any other doctor is responsible, and that is Dr. Arnie Klein. He's a creepy looking dude. He did a bunch of interviews. You can tell he loves the sound of his own voice.
Okay, I invented minimally invasive aesthetics. I think I'm the best at what I do.
He loved being in the celebrity spotlight, and he did whatever he could. And if you listen to any one of his interviews, you listen and you tell me that you'd let that guy babysit your dogs. There's no way. And he had 2 sets of books.
Is there a possibility of criminal charges against you?
I don't think whatsoever. I haven't broken any laws.
No one keeps 2 sets of books unless you know you're doing something you shouldn't do. So my 2 cents, Dr. Klein was the real culprit. Dr. Conrad Murray, he was just the guy holding the bag at the end of the day. Everyone before him got Michael hooked. He did say, even Dr. Murray said, and listen to the interview, man, the guy seems emotional about it. He seems like he really cared. Does he have guilt? Yeah, I still think he does, but Dr. Klein, he's guilty. Dr. Feelgood, the dermatologist to the stars. What do you think? Hit that subscribe button, leave a comment, share it. I'll see you in the comments.